So let's discuss some pivot words so that you understand, okay, how to be conscious about when you're reading it, right? Whenever you see these words, you got to be a bit careful, underline them and understand the flow of the sentence. Don't get confused in the flow of sentence and pick the wrong word, right? Like if it is going in a negative sense, you should not pick a positive word unless you see some pivot words, right? So let's say if I'm talking about this, he worked really hard and his scores were dash. Obviously, based on this line, what would you say? He worked really hard and his scores were good. That's what you expect, right? That's generally what you would expect. Bad might be there. It's not really a wrong thing to use, but I would say based on this sentence, the simple sentence, this looks good. If I add a word like this, although he worked hard, he worked really hard, his scores were, here you can't put good, you have to put bad, right? Why? Because although he worked really hard, so that is under the assumption that people who work hard will get good scores. That's why I was saying he worked really hard and his scores were good, was an expected answer, good. But here when I see the although word, what does it mean? It's a pivot word, which is the counter word, which is a negative word. Although he worked really hard, though he worked really hard, he didn't get what he was supposed to get. That's why you will see the word although. So what would I see here? I should use a word which is saying that his scores were bad or abysmal, etc., which are poor or bad, abysmal, etc. That's why it's very important to understand the pivot, right? If you don't understand this one, if you still go ahead and write, okay, he worked hard, so you should get good scores, that is going to give you the wrong answer. So supporting words are like this, also, and, besides, like this, right? He worked really hard and his scores were good. That's what you will expect. Like, moreover, in fact, in addition, all of this. So he's a good boy, he's a hard-working student. In addition to that, he is also smart, right? He is hardworking. In addition to that, he is also, if I put a blank, I should put a word which would mean smart. I cannot put he's also dumb. That would not go well, right? Because here is talking about he's hardworking. This is one positive trait. In addition, also, these are all supporting words. I expect here also should be a positive word. It should not be a negative word. If it was like but, if this one was but he is, then I would say negative word like dumb or not so smart, etc. Right? See, that's the impact of these words, right? That's why pivot words are very important. Moreover, these are the list of the supporting words which would continue the positive to positive or negative to negative. And these are the counter words which would make positive to negative or negative to positive. Sometimes a complex sentence might have two counter words which would make, I'm talking about positive, then one counter word make it negative, another counter word make it negative to negative, again it's positive, right? So be careful with that. Although he worked really hard, right? Although he worked hard, his scores weren't dash. What would I put here? Although he worked hard, his scores weren't. So here one pivot, it was going, he worked hard is a positive, connotation. His scores were not, right? This is again another negative word. So negative, negative, positive, so it should sync with this. He worked hard, his scores were good is what you would have written. So here also it should be that. Although he worked hard, his scores were not good, right? This is similar to his scores were bad, right? His scores were bad because I had although only, but here I have another negative word not, so I need to negative, negative becomes positive. So he worked hard, his scores were good is equal to although he worked hard, his scores were not good. Be careful with that part, right? I hope you understood this. If not, you'll get through some practice, but be careful on realizing the pivot words and understanding how many pivot words are there, are they positive, negative, and how they would change the direction.